Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Brent's been a little quiet the last couple podcast intros we've done. It's mostly just me talking.
Well, it's because Brian has kept me locked inside of a basement editing for the last couple weeks.
True.
I'm just now seeing the sunlight, and
True.
It burns my eyes.
Well, by the time this podcast goes out, we'll have launched 2 videos from the Mule Deer series that I did with Ryan Lampers. And on this hunt, on that Mule Deer series hunt, we actually consumed quite a bit of Heather's Choice Meals, who is the featured guest today. Only this time we had Ryan Lampers do the interview with Heather.
He was supposed to, but she kind of hijacked it, and they kind of interviewed each other.
You know, Ryan isn't the most intrusive interviewer, assertive interviewer. And so, Heather probably had to carry the show. I didn't really listen to it.
You see, there's a swing. He starts asking her some questions, and then she comes back and answers. She took over like last half of the podcast.
Someone has to. With Ryan there, it's hard. Like I did a podcast years ago with Russ Meyer. He's still one of my favorite shows. And Russ is just he has killed everything that alive, just giant animals. And so I'm having this podcast with Russ, and he's an introvert big time. And so it was kind of tough to get him to do it, and he was pretty nervous going into it. And then as we're doing the podcast, Russ is the sort of person where, he kills everything under the moon, but then you go and you ask him, so how do you do it? And he's like, you just do it. And that's, it's like, well, Russ, tell me more.
Step by step.
By step.
I went into the woods.
Yeah.
And then I killed it.
It's really hard to pull stuff out of introverts like that. And when you're having a conversation with an introvert, you end up doing, 70% of the talking to get 30% of participation from an introvert.
And that's high number right there.
Yeah. Sometimes it's 20%. You do
if
80.
If you're skilled, you can get 30.
And so one of the tricks in podcasting when I interview someone like Russ is you have that natural conversation the way it just naturally happens, but you don't subject the whole audience to me talking 70% of the time. And so you cut back a whole ton of your part of the conversation. So it seems like a more balanced conversation. And what's so funny is on that podcast with Russ Meyer, I cut out a ton of my talking. And yet, I got people complaining so much about how much I spoke during the whole podcast. And I'm like, look, it was really tough. And so, anyway.
Some people are they don't like being interviewed too.
Well, now that I've spent as much time as I have with Ryan, one thing I know about introverts, because our mother is one. We have a couple sisters who are introverted, extremely.
Our mother had a bunch of kids because she wanted to make people that she liked.
And so what happens is with these introverts, it can be really difficult to get a conversation out of them.
It's painful for them in a very literal sense sometimes.
But once you have become a friend with an introvert, you can't shut them up. They'll talk. And Ryan talks a lot now. He's pretty comfy. He can just let her go.
You just had to break him of that whispering problem that he has.
Oh, it's never going to stop. It's always there.
He whispers everywhere he goes.
So today's podcast is with Ryan and Heather.
They talk fitness and nutrition.
Yep. And I did a podcast with Heather. It was ironically that same day. We recorded a couple weeks back, and I shared kind of what I like to eat and what my exercise routines kind of are. And then Ryan shared his kind of setup. Heather shared hers. So this show is, what does Ryan Lampers do? Because that's a ton of people want to know. And supposedly that's what the show is about. Is that what it's about?
That's what it's about. It's pretty similar with you, but there's a couple of stark contrasts.
Yeah, Ryan's lame and doesn't like to do squats, but whatever. He can do whatever he wants to do. So speaking of which, there was an article that came out the other day, and it came to my attention because Cameron Haynes mentioned it on his Instagram because Cam was pissed. And I'm like, what is this article? And so I went and looked it up, and it pissed me off too. And it's by this guy, Will Brantley, contributor to his Field and the Stream. And it was the January issue.
Yeah, it's startling to me that this is in Field and Stream.
It's really classless, in my opinion.
The article, I don't get the point of the article because it's got
mocking undertones. big
Well,
time.
yeah,
for
but
a
it's
subset
also,
of our community.
It's a hit piece. It's a schmear piece. There's nothing uplifting about it.
No.
This piece, if it never existed, would have impacted 0 lives in a positive manner.
In Cam's Instagram story, there was a contrast. Brody Swisher wrote a piece, "Is Joe Rogan good for hunting?" And that was on bowhunting.com. And that was pretty thought-provoking. And he actually made a case for why Joe Rogan, has been beneficial to hunting, even though, he and I come from different worlds. He's Hollywood. He's in LA, very surrounded by a lot of sort of vegan type folks. Mm-hmm. And here we are, he talks about the pros and cons, but mostly the benefits of having someone like Joe Rogan being good for hunting. It was a very good and thought-provoking piece, positive, versus this Will Brantley article, which I'll read it to you, and maybe it'll piss you off too. He says, did people hunt in the mountains before CrossFit? They did, but with low self-esteem, since CrossFit doesn't work unless you have social media to tell everyone you're in CrossFit. Back in the day, with no platform for sharing your up-to-the-minute training schedule, folks had to keep all that fitness and toughness to themselves. Today, it's a snap to make sure your friends and all those people who are not actually your friends can admire your dedication. Think how much better things would have been if Hugh Glass could have made an Instagram story. AMRAP came in handy today. Scalp missing, but bear got it worse. Where the hell did you guys go? Hashtag mountain ops. Dragged myself 10 miles today. Man, am I glad I flipped those tractor tires all summer. Truth is, if by September there's someone who doesn't know you've been training for an elk hunt since last October, it's your own fault for not posting enough about it. Hashtag cardio. There's so many things I hate about this whole thing. But the biggest thing is this idea that, first of all, the mockery of CrossFit is just stupid.
It is. I don't get why people hate on CrossFit.
Well, it's just like any other fitness program out there. There's a billion of them. You can mock a guy for running 200 miles. Like you can mock a guy for just going to the gym and lifting weights. But at the end of the day, you're just mocking people who exercise, who care about being in shape. What's that? What's that for? It doesn't make any sense to me.
How dare you want to be a better person, Brian?
And the fact is, what I really despise about it is the whole premise of this is that people who share their workouts or that they exercised, that they climbed a mountain, that they do it for adoration and the praise of others. Like their sole motivation is so that people will like them.
No one ever climbed a mountain before social media came around. Never, not once.
How about people post that stuff because they like to inspire others, or they're trying to stay motivated, and people that give them props helps them keep going. You know what I mean? It's like when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson goes and hits the gym. I don't sit there and go, "Oh, dude, all he cares about is showing off how awesome he is." Gosh, man. It's like, actually, you look at Cameron Haynes and you look at what he's done. People follow along, love or hate him. The guy inspires tens of thousands of people to go and get their butts off the couch and change their lives.
He and David Goggins are both psychopaths to me, but it's still inspiring.
Totally. David Goggins is a perfect example of someone who really pushes if you've read his book, and I read it just about a month ago, the human being is capable of so much more than we think we are. And it isn't about how physically strong you are. It's about how mentally strong you are. And Cam proves that day in and day out. What is Cam, 50-something?
Mm-hmm. He's in his 50s.
And he's running freaking 200-mile races still. He's getting after it every day. And if that doesn't give you a wake-up call when you're out of shape or not, it's inspiring to see that. Our friend Michael Merrill, I see him running all the time. And he's no Greek fitness god. Mm-hmm. He's out there every day, though, busting it, and I follow him, and I see his stories, and he's pretty average Joe guy that's just getting after it, and it is inspiring to me.
Jocko Willink wakes up at 4 a.m. for a run every day.
And takes a picture of his stupid watch and sweat on the ground.
Yeah.
Do you think he's doing that so that everyone will say how awesome he is? It's like he will. This is the point. Cam is going to run a 200-mile race with or without Instagram.
Brian, he was.
Yeah, and Jocko is too. And the fact is, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to smash it, or I'm going to climb a mountain. I'm going to do that whether or not I have Instagram to post it to. It has nothing to do with Instagram. In fact, the things I do so much more on the fitness scene than I actually post because I can't be bothered with the posting. But when I post, I do it because people will say, you know, it inspires me. It makes me want to get up and go after it. It makes me want to like take a wake-up call and go, okay, I can do more than this. If he's out there doing this on this day, I could do more too. Anyone who really knows me knows I hate social media and I never want to post to it ever. When I post to social media, it's not for praise. It's because I feel like I should, because it might help someone. That's really it. And so this is what burns me up about this, is this idea that anybody who does it for these shallow reasons. It's just not true. And it really does hate on people that are fit. This hashtag mountain ops. That's just so petty. So petty, because you know what? What do mountain ops give away like 1 million meals to the needy?
Operation Conquer Hunger.
1 million meals this year.
Over that, I think it was more.
It's in the millions.
Yeah.
You go on to their Facebook page, their 90-day challenge Facebook group, I should say. There's hundreds of people on there who have lost more than 100 pounds being part of that community. Why wouldn't we all like be excited about that? And Mount Ops isn't a whole bunch of bros talking about how buff they are who are really taking steroids, and
that's what cracks me up. Hashtag Mountain Ops did not go inside.
It's like yeah, they love to get out and go hunting. They're regular Joes. They want to push the fit hunter, but we're all accepting of whoever you want to be and however fit you want to be. And so the whole thing just bugs me. And Cam ranted. He was pissed off, and he's like, "Why are we publishing articles that hate on other hunters? Why are we even hating on each other?" When the other article is very much about supporting one another, and I couldn't agree more.
Bad form, Will. Bad form.
Yeah, it's just I guess it's trying to be funny, and I can take a joke. You want to make fun of a guy that's getting in shape or whatever, I can take a joke. The thing is, though, is this?
I don't see the punchline.
I don't. It's just weak. The other thing is that bothers me is like when Cameron Haynes goes and crushes it on the mountain and does some kind of 200 and something mile run. His fitness, Brent, has nothing to do with your lack of fitness. They're not related. It's like people who hate millionaires, as if their millionaireness made you poor. I'm sorry. Their millionaire status has nothing to do with your
Cameron's
finances.
Athleticism has kept me fat for the last decade.
They're completely yet this sort of hate fest is like, I hate you because what you do has negatively impacted me. It's like, no. If you don't like where you're at, that's you. It's not someone else. Someone else's success is not the reason you're a failure.
The value of the critic in our society should be zero.
Amen.
It just is.
Amen.
Anyone who criticizes someone else for going out and kicking ass,
it's same with movies.
They're a loser in my book.
It's the same with movies. It's like the value of the critic is useless to me. Fans, I want to see what 50,000 people said about a movie. I don't care about what 6 critics.
I'm just going to watch whatever Chris Pratt is in.
Like you said, the value of the critic is useless. We shouldn't even listen to them. They are do-nothing people, usually. Do-nothing people who spend their days criticizing others. It's weak, and I hate that.
You hate weakness?
Anyway, folks, Merry Christmas. So with that, we're going to get into today's podcast with Heather and Ryan.
We talk about fitness and nutrition.
We talk about fitness and nutrition and eating well year-round. Year-round. And
on the go.
Yeah. So let us know what you think of this show. Leave us a comment on the YouTubes. We always like that. And use the code GRITTY at Mountain Ops and save #Mountain Ops.
#Mountain Ops.
And use the code GRITTY at Heather's Choice, and you can get 15% off.
15%.
Which is a great deal. And you can get your salmon chowder meals. You can get your breakfast.
We need to talk about amaretto packaroons.
Amaretto packaroons.
Amaretto packaroons are the most undervalued and underrated thing on that list.
They're good. I can't quite figure out what an amaretto He is, exactly.
Well, it's a made up flavor. It's an Italian liqueur that's made with I want to say.
Look at Brent doing all this research.
Yeah, it's called Google. I Googled it, but it's a made up flavor. It's got like raisins, pecans, and apricots.
I like that. I like all that.
It's fantastic.
It is good. I think I still like the orange and the vanilla.
I don't know. I think Amaretto might have slipped into first place by a nose.
If you're Lampers, you're about the espresso.
They're
all about the espresso. Lampers is
dry.
all about coffee, period. Mm-hmm. Anything coffee, which is fine.
I like coffee flavored stuff, but the coffee flavored Packaroons, they're just too dry for me. I need to hoard my saliva before I take a bite.
It doesn't seem to affect Lampers. He likes to take the Justin's honey peanut butter and put it on the espresso.
Well, if I put icing on things, it tends to be better.
If I slather them in peanut butter and sugar, but it's like
that's how I choke down celery. Lots of peanut butter.
I love to do that with the Justin's peanut butter honey on those perfect chocolate bars that you get from the Costco packages. Because I buy the ones at Costco, they're chocolate peanut butter, perfect bars. And they always come with the almond ones as well. Mm-hmm. And then I smash the chocolate with peanut butter, and then I eat the peanut butter ones just the way they are. And then I'm left with piles of the almond ones that I don't want to eat.
Send them my way, I'll eat them.
And then I slowly trickle through them throughout the year when I need a bar.
And I see Brian having great intent on eating these things, but they are in every car door jam that you own. They are just slipped into random places.
No.
There's a couple in Mountain Ops. There's a couple down in the office.
I put them in the freezer and store them there 90% of the time. But it is wintertime, so if I do leave one in the car, it's fine this time of year.
This time of year.
I would never do it in the summer because they'll be ruined in a day or two because they really should be refrigerated to stay fresh. Anyway.
I pull them out of your car door jams all the time.
I feel like Packaroons and Perfect Bars are a staple for backcountry hunting, in my opinion. So there you have it, folks. Save 15%. Heather's Choice. Enjoy the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.
Heather's running this podcast. That's cool.
Sure. I feel like I have the terrible habit, though, of like people being like, oh, yeah, do you want to be on my podcast? I'm like, sure. And then I end up asking the questions. So
that, with me over here, that is perfect because I'm not a podcast host. I'm a co-host. My wife is so good at like just keeping the conversation rolling. She's always got like good input and questions. And I'm just like, I end up finding myself just listening to all the information. I know when you and her get together, you have these great conversations, and I'm not even thinking about what I'm going to chip in because I got nothing to say. Just two smart gals going back and forth with information. So I just find myself being a listener.
Yeah. Oh,
like
gosh.
that.
But she is a wealth of knowledge, too, so I always want to absorb whatever she has.
Yeah. Well, both you guys. I mean, both of you two are just, wicked smart, and I have a lot of contribute to all of us out here trying to stay healthy and watch what we're eating and make sure we're not eating the wrong things. So
yeah, totally. My first question for you: how'd you end up hanging out with old Brian over here?
Oh, gosh.
Tell me the story. How you guys became a couple?
Oh, from the beginning. Oh, dang. Yeah. So for those that don't know, we are down here in Brian's studio today, in Utah, Salt Lake. So gosh, Brian and I met at a train to hunt event of all things, a few years back, Washington event. I didn't know who anybody was or anything. I'd listened to, his podcast, of course, and he showed up, and I was partners with Corey Miller. I don't know if you know Corey.
I don't think I do.
Washington. He's out of Oregon, but and him and I were teamed up for this train to hunt event, and this was my second or third event, I think. And Brian was there, and he kind of he made a little video in the end. It was kind of a fun video, one of his YouTube clips. But no, that's where we got to go through and shoot the course that day. Brian hung out, from day one, making me nervous with a camera in my face. I still don't feel comfortable with that, but that's what he's good at, is making people uncomfortable with that dang camera. So, yeah, he got to know him that day really well. By the end of the competition, we got Brian to throw 100 pounds on his back and had him go run the course, and no, he was a stud. He crushed it that day, and we made him run the whole heavy pack weighted course, and it was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and from there, who knew? A few years later would be we've spent some time on the mountain by now, so we've got we've shared a few hunts together, and from bear hunts to out of country New Zealand hunt to hunting right here in the States, and just got done with a mule deer hunt, which those videos are going to be coming out.
Yay!
So now, really enjoyed. Super, super happy when I finally met Brian and got to know him. And guy's tough, man. He's crushing these hunts, and yeah, he's tough. He's gritty.
He's got that old man muscle. That's really what does it for him. I had no idea that like you guys like were buds or hung out until I saw, I think, the black bear hunt videos, which are so unbelievably good. Like, yeah,
they did a great job on those.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see. I think Brian invited himself on that hunt too. I didn't even invite him. He kind of just weaseled his way in somehow.
He's like, I want to hang out with you and Jeff. Can I come?
He says, you're doing what? He's like, can I come? Yeah. And that was how he got in. And no, it was really cool. I'm glad he offered to come on that hunt with us, because we had a great time. Obviously killed all those 5 different bears, and the trio of us it was a perfect combination with Jeff there, and Jeff's got so many camera skills and just a great guy to be with and hunt around, and same with Brian. So
I really
it was fun.
like Jeff. He's so
fun.
He's
great, isn't he? But hopefully we can all get together and do another hunt this next year, all 3 of us. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yep. Since I'm getting to conduct all the questions this evening, the big thing that I find is as you kind of grow your following and as people get more eyes on you and see you get more animals, big animals, like always in shape, always feeling really strong, like it feels like from the outside looking in, like, holy cow, this guy like heals like Wolverine, and he must have like some sort of trick up his sleeve. And my impression of you is that you lead just like a really healthy lifestyle year round, but don't trumpet the fact that, you're in the gym every day or hiking up the hill every day or whatever it is. And so I would love for you to kind of tell me and everybody else a little bit, what does it look like for you to maintain health year round? Not simply just training for hunts or whatever. Because my impression is that this is a full-time gig for you.
Right, so right, for sure.
I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about that, because again, I think that as you gain more attention, I think that more eyes are going to be on you. And I feel like you have such a great opportunity to be a good example of this is what it looks like to maintain health year round, so that when hunting season shows up, I'm ready and it's easy. It's not this like Herculean effort to get in shape and to get healthy before the season starts.
Sure. Wow.
And don't mind my squeaky, sick voice.
I've got a bit of that going on too. Well, first off, I will preface all of this whole conversation about health and food, and I will dote on my wife, because I don't know if I would be as healthy right now and taking the steps to be completely fit year round and just ready for my hunting season if it wasn't for her, because she educated me, back in the day as far as what it's going to take. How do you maintain it? You can't just like do this off and on. You don't want to like go into a hunting season and a month before start your working out, start eating right. You need to do this year round. Longevity, all those things come with being diligent throughout the year, not just sporadic. So, in doing that, it does become a complete lifestyle. Like food becomes your life. You want to plant a garden, which is what I'm really into gardening. Just because it's almost as exciting as hunting for me, because, you get to go through all these steps. You get to get the soil ready in the beginning. You're doing all this work. And then in the end, you're harvesting this stuff and you're eating it. you're giving it to your girls and you're enjoying it and you're canning it and preparing it. And this is stuff that's going to feed you for the rest of the year, throughout the winter. So it is a lifestyle. And I think as a hunter, our community, food is, we should be the ambassadors for eating clean. We all how many times have you heard the saying, we know where our food comes from? It's true.
Some of it.
It is true, but yeah, what about all the other stuff? There's this little portion of meat, but there's this whole other part of your plate that you need to talk about and figure that out too. And so, the other side of the plate is something that we've talked about a lot and going on the podcast. And, we've always enjoyed the vegetable side as well as the meat side. And if you combo that, you're gardening from early spring, throughout the summer, and then you go right into hunting season. So you get to prepare and can and preserve and dehydrate all these greens and veggies. And then you've just done all this food prep, you're making meals, and then dehydrating them and then taking those on the mountain, which you're using on your hunts. It's just you get the ball rolling and you just want to do more of it. And it all kind of fits together. So, I know for me, what it looks like is at the end of the hunting season, I'm already thinking about, obviously the next hunts, but I'm thinking about my garden. I'm thinking about what can I do right now to help my soil. Right now, I'm in the process of building soil for next spring when I get to plant again. Being in Montana now, it's changed everything. I used to have a really good, easy to grow soil in Washington State. Now I'm in Three Forks, Montana, clay. I'm dealing with some stuff. So I'm figuring it out, but it's fun to build this up, and it's going to take a while to get it right. And I'm learning and taking notes of what works, what doesn't work. But it's a fun lifestyle because in the end, I'm going to have this amazing garden again, like I had back in Washington. I'm going to have the greenhouses. I'm going to have dialed what grows best in this environment, this climate. And then I'll be able to, again, get back to canning all this stuff and preparing it and making meals. And it just kind of goes hand in hand with hunting, because now when I do get bear meat or venison or elk, I know where that came from. It was off a hunt, and we can talk about that. But then there's all the other, side dishes to that, from whether you're growing potatoes or sweet potatoes or all the veggies that go along with it. It all came from you. So you know where all your food comes from. Now, obviously, we're not perfect. I know that. We've got kids. We don't eat everything that we harvested ourselves. We go to the grocery store, and we have to supplement. But we try to minimize that as much as possible. So I think back to your question, what it looks like is just always being aware of what can I do better as far as health. It is hiking. You don't see a lot of the workouts or stuff that I do. I'm not on there shirtless posting videos of working out like probably Brian Call does all the time. But showing how much weight he's squatting. But to be clear, I think that's one of the points I wanted to get across. And I'm asking a very leading question. Do you think that lifting weights and cardio are equally as important if you're trying to prepare for hunting, or do you prioritize hiking and being outside with a pack? So yeah, I think lifting weights. I lift weights. I've got fortunate to have a basement now where all my gym equipment is, and I do that. I think that has an importance to it. I think building strong muscles around your joints, there's a benefit to that. But that, without the endurance, without hiking hills every day with weighted packs, that gives you, just in the gym, that it gives you nothing. We've probably, anybody out there that hunts a lot and have taken a partner that thinks he's in good shape because he tears it up in the gym, typically that guy doesn't last very long. His endurance isn't there. I'm that kid. Yeah. I'm like the gym rat and get me outdoors, and it's like, different muscles, right? This is longer than the 12-minute AMRAP thing. Yeah. There's something about the unevenness to the ground, weighted packs. I think doing what you end up doing on the mountain is very, very important. So my most consistent workout is taking a weighted pack and hiking up the mountain and back down. Sometimes I go fast, sometimes I go far. And both those two things probably help me more than anything. But I know if I only hike with weight, I'm getting endurance and I'm getting cardio and all that, but I'm not building some of that strong muscle tissue that I need to keep my ankles strong, my knees strong, my legs strong. So I definitely lean more on the cardio and the endurance and the hiking with weight, just because it's very specific to what I'm doing. But I think weight training is very important as well. So,
do you focus on the major lifts, or do you do a lot of unilateral stuff, or like sandbag get-ups and things that are a little bit more awkward?
Yep.
Because I think about that anytime there's an opportunity to do like suitcase deadlifts or walking lunges, or like stuff that kind of puts you in sort of an awkward position to get you ready for picking up a really heavy pack.
Right.
Ideally.
For sure. Yeah, I think core. I don't think anything replaces a strong core. And, sandbags and stuff like that. I use the battle ropes a lot.
Oh, nice.
I just like doing it. It makes me sweat. And then, I've got a box, like a CrossFit box. And I don't do a lot of CrossFit stuff, but I do like grab the dumbbells, and I do a lot of, like jump up, jump down type stuff on the box. And then a lot of dumbbell stuff, just step ups and things of that nature, and just putting as much weight on as I can. And, but yeah, I love the, like the sandbag, picking it up, slamming it, those type things that just crush your core. Those are some of my favorite lifts. Look at me. I'm not like a weightlifter. I'm not doing a whole lot of benching and squatting and that kind of thing, but do a lot of other things.
I wanted to ask that because I think that that's valuable for people who are preparing and really hoping to feel like they're in good shape. Like a lot of that stuff that you would do in a controlled environment of the gym, maybe in a squat rack, it's not necessarily going to apply.
For sure.
And I know that for me, that was a big turning point when I was really steeped in CrossFit and realized like, man, I'm actually skipping going hiking on a Saturday because I had like a really heavy leg workout on Friday. This isn't the lifestyle that I want. Like I want to be able to work out, but then when it comes time to get out, I'm not too sore or like too wrecked from being in the gym to actually go out and do the outdoor activities that I love and that I'm actually training for.
Sure.
So I feel like helping people just sort of find that balance of like, what are you actually training for and how often are you actually getting to go do that thing that you're training for?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a good point. That's what we want to be doing, right? We want to be out in the mountains. We want to be hiking. And I think the weighted hiking, I just love hiking anyway, and I'm getting a big benefit to it. And so, I think a lot of people, the younger guys, man, there's some fit guys. CrossFit kings out there, but you get a pack on them in the mountains, especially extended periods of time. Maybe the endurance isn't quite there. And so one of the, I wouldn't say this is the norm, but most people probably take 2 to 3 day trips. But there's some of us that want to do like 10 days. And there's a whole different level of, I guess, endurance. A lot of it comes with mental fatigue, day in and day out, being able to do that and still be fresh that next day. So a lot of it is a mental side. Strength doesn't really help you last 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days. And these days, public land guys, you just have to be a little bit, feels like you have to have an edge. Like you have to be a little bit better than the next guy. You got to be able to go a little bit farther. You got to be able to stay a little bit longer. Those little advantages are just like incredibly, your success goes up leaps and bounds if you have a little bit more time. And I think a lot of people struggle to have like the mental side of staying in there over a week, especially if you're by yourself. Did a trip this year and 10 days in is a long time to spend with yourself, for sure.
You got to like yourself to spend that much time alone.
You got to be pretty okay with, having conversations with yourself and be able to take that. But, So that's kind of a part that I think kicks a lot of people out of trips more so than sometimes the physical. It's just the mental of, one, being by yourself, or two, you're day in and day out, you just don't have the comfort that you have once you're back home. So being very uncomfortable day after day after day can really, really wear on people, and it just spits them out, especially those extended trips. So it's kind of a rare thing to find folks that they may have all the tools physically, but I think you have to work up to, if you really want to like find consistent success on a certain age class or something like that, you got to work up to be able to stay in there longer than other folks. And you got to work at being able to go a little bit farther. You might be in 10, 12 miles. And I think that's a huge advantage. And I've found that, you know, you look in the social right now, it's becoming very popular. Public land hunts, people are wanting to go further and all this. So every year, like, I'm getting older, I find like I got to go farther than I had to go last year. You just got to do a little bit more to keep a little bit of an edge. Mm-hmm. And I think if you don't have the mental, if you don't build that mental fortitude in the off season, doing these, you know, tough workouts or long extended hikes or heavy weighted hikes, even if they're not that far, they can suck. They can be uncomfortable. That really, really pays dividends in the fall.
Yeah, I feel like I talked to you about that earlier this year, where I was like, dude, all the hunts that we've done recently, like the last 2 years, don't extend past 4 days. And it feels like it's just not enough time.
Yeah.
And I feel like you said that to me on the phone of just, man, your success rate after seven to 10 day window, you just have more time to actually like see where everything is.
Yeah. And I noticed like you and Brad did a hunt and you guys had weather. Like you guys were stuck in the tent with
That's
fog.
every trip with Brad and I.
I've seen a lot of you guys in the tent, like waiting for the weather.
Oh my gosh. That's Alaska. And then that's also like Brad and I's trips. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
The weather we run into.
And then like on 4 days, man, you could have half that or all of that be weather, hunkered down, and you get no eyes on the mountain. Generally in 10, you're going to have some days. Or if it's not weather, it's an area that just needs to be figured out. And you need all those days to do that. So I think people that, you know, they take 5-6 days off, that's awesome. And not everybody can take more than that off with work. But I think a lot of people are really, really close to probably accomplishing that goal. And then they have to get out of the mountains, or they didn't give themselves enough time. And maybe it was that very next day. I mean, opportunities could come just like that, right? That maybe it was that very next day that giant comes out and you see him, or the weather breaks and you're able to do it. So I've just found that, and my wife will attest to this, my trips are getting longer. Like I'm making sure I'm carving out 10 days. Like that's kind of like a minimum. If I can carve out 10 days, I know somewhere in there, I'm going to find what I'm looking for. I'm going to have the good weather. I'm going to get what I went there for sure. Anything less, and I feel like I'm kind of cramming this trip together and trying to rush it.
Totally. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then the other thing that I got to talk to Brian about, you have your fitness routine, which I imagine it's like every day do something. Can you walk us through a day in the life of your everyday nutrition? And the reason I'm asking you that is because I want to compare it or contrast it to what you do in the backcountry. And my inclination is that there's going to be some similarities here. There's going to be some things that are very similar between your day-to-day life and then what you're actually eating in the mountains. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, very similar. Real food, like real food at home, staying away from the processed stuff. Every morning when I get up, I'm not eating cereal. I'm not eating that kind of stuff. It's just, you know, Hill and I, we try to eat, we have chickens, so we're eating a lot of eggs and that. Eggs are like probably one of my favorite foods.
Yep.
I eat a lot of that. And then I do really well with oats. You know, it works for me. So sometimes I'm making like I have this dish that I take on the mountain. I call it mountain mush. And it's just oats combined with a bunch of other things. and it's a flavor that I like. So I'll do that when I'm at the house. And then throughout the day, I'm snacking on clean foods. I eat your food a lot, packaroons. I also make some of my own that are similar. They're just like very simple ingredients. And they're kind of like, they're just good and they're clean. They're not, filled with sugars and ingredients that I can't read. And that's kind of what I do at the house as well. My meals this time of year, seasonally, this is like stew season. I'm throwing all these foods that, we had stored from the garden and stuff like that. Those are going into stews. We're making neck roasts from the venison. Or just every night. I mean, I got 2 crock pots in the house. I got an Instapot and I got a slow cook crock pot, always full of meat. And so it's a lot of stews, soups. We're still working off all these squash that we had, and I'm making squash soup and stuff like that. So it ends up being just real food, and trying to steer clear of as much of like the simple sugars, processed foods, and then similar to what happens in hunting season is I just kind of continue on doing that. So we're building meals. One of the reasons why I like your meals is because you look on the back and you can see all the ingredients. You're like, okay, that's all real food. Like I know every one of those ingredients. Easy. And it's just simple, right? I think maybe it's not simple for people to get off of processed, boxed foods. Things that are like you find in the middle of the store, stay at the ends of the store. There's like vegetables and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's kind of like our day to day is just, healthy, clean snacks, always trying to stay as clean as possible.
So are you an everyday, like, do you get up and you're like, I have an appetite to eat breakfast every day? Or the reason I'm asking is because to compare to Brian's schedule, he said he's pretty geeked into intermittent fasting and doesn't eat until after his workout. And I'm just curious if it's different for you. Like, no, I eat breakfast and then I try to graze and then have a big meal at the end of the day, just kind of comparing.
Yeah, so we're definitely different. I always eat right away out of the gates. I know
Brad's the same way.
A lot of people aren't like that, and they just don't like eating out of in the morning. And in fact, I think it was yesterday, or the day before. I'm up at 5, 6 in the morning, and Hill always comes in. She's like, "Gosh, are you eating already?" It's like, just woke up. I don't know. It's like coffee and good healthy food in the morning, whether that's an omelet or whatever. I do that, and I don't have and I need to get more educated on it, and I respect that Brian's doing what he's doing, and we just had a guy in our deer camp with us, Mike Munsell, and he does the intermittent fasting as well. He does 2 meals a day. I think he's got an 8-hour feeding window. I think he eats at 10, maybe it's a 6-hour feeding window. I think he eats at 10 and then 4 is his latest meal. And then he's fasting the rest of those hours. And I respect the heck out of people that can do that, but I like my early morning meal. And I like my really end of the day, feast.
Yep.
So.
And I just think that that's so valuable because we know that there's different body types out there.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with my boyfriend, Brad, where, he's lean, like he's just a very lean individual and has a fast metabolism and just cranks through food. And I think pretty similar to your wife, they're slender people. And if you take people like that and you're like, here, I have an idea. How about you only eat in this 6 to 8 hour window? They're going to disintegrate in front of you.
Yep.
Whereas I would consider myself to be someone closer to Brian's body type, where I consider myself a mesomorph. I can build muscle pretty easily. And so it's okay for me to play around with maybe having breakfast at 10 or 11 after I've had my first cup of coffee and had a Zen morning. I can definitely get away with that. But for other people, I feel like it's so important for them to just get up and get some food in them and get off to the races. And that individuality, I feel like, is so freaking important for people to figure out for themselves.
And I think it's getting lost out there right now because everybody's kind of you see a lot out in social. There's these diets, not just in social, it's just everywhere. diets. I can't stand diets. Like I know people preach like this is going to help you. You're going to shave all this weight, but everybody's different. I think everybody needs to figure out what works for them because, I'm not good on keto. Just not. Just doesn't work for me. Some people, it's amazing. You shed weight, you can maintain muscle and you have endurance. It just doesn't quite work for me. But I think everybody needs to figure that out for themselves. It's like calorie counting. I don't calorie count, but I do know what I need in a bag every day when I'm on the mountain. I know it works for me. I have no idea if that's 3,000 calories or 3,500 or 4. I don't know. But I know this is what works for me in my daily life back home. This is real similar to what I'm going to have on the mountain, but I'm going to add a little bit, obviously, because I'm working harder up there. But no, I think you're totally right. I think each individual needs to figure out what works and just pay attention to what feels best to you instead of paying attention to somebody else that's telling you need to do this.
Totally.
You need to only eat this. You need to only do carnivore. You only need to do. It's like some people don't do good on carnivore, so maybe that's just not you. Maybe play around with it, but figure out what works best, and don't. Not everybody's built for keto.
Thank you. Like because I understand it works great for some people. And yes, of course, I believe that a low carb diet can be very therapeutic and can potentially be a great lifestyle for somebody depending on their activity level. But man, for myself as a business owner, every day somebody's like, where can I get low carb stuff? How come you don't offer keto options? And it's like, look, I'm not fully sold on this. Like, I know that it works for folks. If you want to do that, great. I will always stand behind our products because they're nutritionally balanced. You get fats, you get proteins, you get carbs. And I don't feel like you can like really stray too far by having whole foods balanced across the whole spectrum.
Right.
So I just appreciate you not hopping on the keto bandwagon because I feel like I'm not alone. But I think that it is valuable for people to not be afraid of carbohydrates because we know that the pendulum can swing from like no carbohydrates to all the carbohydrates. Sure. And we just want to stay in the middle. Yeah. And
I've talked to so many people. I get kind of immersed in this stuff with, Hunt Harvest Health World. I get Hill's, input, and we get a lot of people talking about, should I do keto? Should I do this? I didn't do good on keto. And so we get all these different responses from people. And, some people do great, but maybe they do great for 6 months. And then all of a sudden their endurance isn't there and they're losing muscle mass. And well, maybe 6 months isn't enough. Maybe that's not the ideal diet for you. Maybe it should just be like you're talking about, real foods, whether that's a healthy percentage of fats, carbs, and proteins. Maybe it's more focused on the cleanness of the food versus only trying to get your body into ketosis. That just doesn't work for some folks.
Totally.
So,
and that's where Brian and I had the opportunity to talk about that a little bit too, of how therapeutic carbohydrates can be at the right time. Because I definitely noticed for myself, like, there are times when the most nourishing meal can be like eggs and salmon and zucchini, something without a lot of carbohydrates. And it's just like, my body just needed proteins and fats. And like, that's all I needed right then. Yeah. Otherwise, there can be times where it's like, did a hard workout. The most therapeutic thing right now is going to be like a big fat sweet potato or a sweet potato and an apple, going all in, all 60 grams of carbs at once, like going crazy. And
listen to your body, and that's what it needs.
Totally.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just did a blood test on my daughter, and of all things, we found out that she's intolerant to is potatoes.
Nightshades?
Do you know how many things out there have potatoes in it? I mean, almost everything from breads to supplements, vitamins of just a ton
Potato
of antibiotics
starch.
Are like potatoes is in everything. And so it's interesting because we just had this big old stew, and we had a bunch of potatoes, and I cut a bunch in there. And she immediately, like as soon as she started eating, about halfway through her bowl, like her stomach was hurting her. And we'd never really just put it together. like she's had stomach issues. Like she complains of her stomach hurting pretty frequently, and it's getting more rampant as she gets older. And then we finally just did this test on her, Hill did, and lo and behold, it's like potatoes is the one thing that she's not going to do well with. And so now we have to completely change the diet and, you know, what she's able to take in, which is pretty limited with that intolerance. So, you know, every body's different. Some people do good with certain things. Some people don't. My wife talks about people getting these panels done, and there's a few folks out there that are intolerant to meat. And my wife thinks it would be very funny and hilarious if, like, I ever get to that point where
you're
I'm
like, no,
to meat.
I won't take this test. Keep it away from me.
Yeah, for sure. I don't even want to know.
Thankfully, she's so freaking smart and is going to have all the gut healing protocols under the sun for your little girl to ideally be able to, like, grow out of it or, like, heal and move past it. Because I feel like that's another point that I hear a lot is people being like, oh, I'm allergic to blah, and saying it as an absolute versus realizing, again, that our bodies change so frequently that you can outgrow an allergy, or you can heal your gut and be able to eat those foods again. It could be your body just saying, like, dude, I have eaten my lion's share of potatoes.
Yes, absolutely. That happens for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, I know people that'll have like one meal where it's just too much of something.
Yep. And
forever and ever after that, they never do well with it. They get sick of it. They get like violently sick off of it. My cousin, he had a day out on the boat. We were eating prawns, or he was eating prawns, and he ate like, I don't even know how many he ate. And
that's a sickness I'd like to get.
Yeah, if there is like a smidge of prawn in anything, whether it's a dip, you name it, and as soon as he eats it now, he hurls. He just gets sick as a dog. Oh. And that was like something that, you know, we eat growing up forever. But one little happenstance and you can't eat them anymore. So our bodies do change for sure.
When you're not being a saint with your food, what's your if you were to have a guilty pleasure with food?
You mean the meal after the hunt coming out?
Yes. This is the stuff I want to hear.
Oh man, yeah. So usually it's real similar.
Oh my gosh, Brian with the Mountain Dews. I was like, you drink Mountain Dew?
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah.
No way.
He did. He said that on podcast.
Jeez, that is.
Unless he's trying to cut it out of the last episode. But
way bottom of the barrel. I don't stoop that low. No, it's typically the same thing. What I crave after doing something ridiculously tough, it's like, I just want a big old greasy burger with a bunch of fries and like tartar sauce.
Ooh.
That's it.
That's a good choice.
That fills me up and it makes me feel like crap for about, a couple days. And so I don't do it all the time. But yeah, I do crave that,
it's all the salt, I
salt
swear.
And grease and everything. Yeah, but I feel like you earn something like that. So a little bit of misery after the fact is not going to kill me. But that's kind of my cheat meal, I guess.
Yeah, that's
greasy
a good
burger.
One. Yep. I feel like I have a really good grasp on your backcountry nutrition regime. At least I think I do, because I've heard a lot of the similar things of the mountain mush and the fruit leathers and the hemp hearts and things like that. Are there any like new additions from this past season or any tricks up your sleeve? Because again, I feel like a lot of folks, if they're paying attention, maybe have seen your backcountry menu before. Mm-hmm. But I imagine again, it changes. You like pick up a new sly thing.
Yeah, it's always changing, ever evolving for sure. One thing that doesn't change is the oats. I do that mountain mush that I make. I like that. I like that for a lunch. And I'll mix it up by time of day. Like sometimes I'll eat that for my lunch. Sometimes I'll eat it for my breakfast. But I'm also a huge fan of the buckwheat. That's why I eat a crud ton, probably too much of your banana nutmeg.
Oh, it's so good.
Breakfast. Yeah, that's my favorite by far. I can't have too many of those. But I just mix it in, like how I change up the flavors with my mountain mush, which is just a bunch of oats. I add some chia in there. I do some cinnamon. I usually do some dried fruit or berries. Sometimes I'll put like a peanut butter in there. Sometimes I'll do a little maple syrup in there to sweeten it up. It just kind of mix and match a bunch of things. Goji berries I'll put in there sometimes. And then as far as snacks go, gosh, it is pretty dang consistent. It's like, I think packaroons are like just something that's always going to be like every one of my 10-day, like I've got bags, laid out for 10 days. Every one of those bags has a couple packaroons in it. And I also do make my own, like these peanut butter cookies, and they're loaded with similar ingredients like peanut butter and oats, coconut oil, coconut, shredded coconut, stuff like that. They're all just good, clean. Some of them are a little dense, so it just kind of mixes it up. And then, I do a lot with leathers and dehydrated fruit. That feels like dessert to me on the mountain. And sometimes I'll have it midday. Sometimes that's like my dessert after my end of the day meal. Mm-hmm. Like I'll just chow down a fruit leather. And you can get so creative with, making those type leathers. Like I talk about the sweet potato leather that I make all the time.
I know. I wish you would send me some.
They're so
Every
good.
time I see them, I'm like, oh.
Oh, they're so good. And I get like, I dole them out to people quite a bit just so they can taste them. And everybody likes those things. And it's so simple. It's sweet potatoes. It's hopefully some homemade applesauce that you made, a little bit of cinnamon, and you can sweeten it up if you want to with some honey or maple syrup or agave or whatever, but you don't have to. And then basically, using the dehydrator, drying them out and rolling them up. And every day I eat those. They're like one of the cleanest carbs I can have is sweet potatoes. And then you can just do other, snacky type leathers, whether it's just applesauce or banana puree, stuff like that. I think every year I change it up a little bit and like what fruit I do. So it's banana slices, apples, pears, mangoes, pineapples is really good, but you gotta do some dicing to get enough pineapple to last for 10 days every day if you want a bag of pineapple. But also, one thing I added this year that, man, I don't know why I didn't do it before, but it's melons. So like honeydew, cantaloupe, slicing those up, 1/2-inch slices, putting those on the dehydrator. Usually takes like, quite a while. It's like 15 hours or something to get those dried down. But I was handing those out to guys, and Brian included, and that's like, it's got the best flavor is melon, like dehydrated melons. And so I added that to the mix this year. So I just get kind of creative in that. I add like a fruit and dry it out.
Nice.
So the dehydrator is always going in our house, and we've got 2 of them. And that's, I've found that it's just, I like doing it. I like creating my own little concoctions and making them and getting creative with it. And, similar with the meals, we kind of mix it up there as well. I run a lot of yours, and I try to do the same when I make mine, is just real ingredients, using wild game, using garden foods, using stuff that I have, making these dishes, figuring out what tastes good for dinner, taking the leftovers, and I do some dehydrating, and I use those, and it's kind of what I live on in the fall.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It is, man. You really get into it, and it just becomes a lifestyle, and it's all based around food, some way or another.
That's the life I want. That is the life that I hope to lead.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think you've done pretty good with Heather's Choice.
Yeah, I look forward to the point that that we have more time to dedicate to the gardening bit, or like right now it feels like my life definitely revolves around entrepreneurship. It's like, okay, I am all in on this for the foreseeable future. And I feel like the next phase of my life will be like, I'm going to make apple butter. I'm going to make raspberry jam.
Yep.
I'm going to pickle some stuff and just do that pretty aggressively, because man, it is so gratifying to have your own applesauce. And this year I made apple pie filling in big old jars, and it's like apple pie instantly. It's so freaking good.
For sure.
And so gratifying.
Yep. Now, have you got into the canning world at all? Yes.
Love it.
That's addicting, isn't it?
The mistake I made though was I bought the smallest All-American pressure canner.
Oh, you didn't get the big one.
Big mistake.
How many quart is it? It's like
probably like 12. It's pathetic.
Dang.
Yeah. So like,
so you got some time investment to get some jars kicked out.
I can do like 4 jars at a time. So I was like, okay, priority number 1, way bigger canner.
Dang.
And like an outside burner. So you can just blast water like crazy, because canning is so labor intensive to me compared to dehydrating that I'm like, dude, this is a serious time commitment.
It is. I mean, I do it a lot, and I see people that do it way more than I do. And because I've done it, you have to respect the time that they put in, because just the prep work of getting your lids, your jars, everything, to the point that it's ready to be canned, your water ready, to put the jars in, the prep on all the food, whether it's, sliced jalapenos, mashed potatoes, you can can about anything. You can make, stews, and, we do a lot of pickled stuff. So beets is one of the probably the most prevalent things in my garden. Pickled beets and pickled onions, and you can spice those up with like a strip of some hot pepper. That's one of my favorite things to do. And you put that on salads in the off season. You just eat it like it is. But yeah, I say easy to do. It's not, because there's all this prep work that goes into it. There's the cleaning, the slicing, and dealing with beets, you're getting the skins off and all that. It's an all day deal to get, 20 jars of beets by the end of the day.
Yep. Agreed.
So,
oh my gosh. But it's so freaking fun. And, freezer space is so precious.
It is.
And I hate blanching. Oh boy, do I hate it. That is not my favorite chore ever.
No. I agree. So I'm curious with you, talked about my diet. What are you eating when you're not eating like salmon chowder?
Yeah, right. When I'm not eating the blueberry cinnamon breakfast.
Yeah, all I
salmon
see
chowder.
Is you eating a lot of salmon chowder, which I don't blame you. But what's your daily consist of?
Gosh, my daily on a good day is I'm like, in my perfect day, I will get up and just start with coffee, because I like to be able to just kind of like have a slow Zen morning and just kind of get centered for the day. So definitely black coffee. And then Brad and I eat a ton of eggs. We're definitely in that category of like, we need 8 chickens on standby all the time.
No kidding. They never produce enough.
Never, ever. Oh my gosh. And then in the wintertime, it's just a joke. You're just like, here you go, pet.
Supplement with store-bought eggs. It's a crime.
It is a crime. So we eat a ton of eggs, and then we typically do bacon or some sort of breakfast sausage. For me, again, as somebody who needs like a lot of protein and a lot of fat, eggs and at least 2 ounces of breakfast sausage or bacon or something will actually feel like, phew, I had a full meal. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot for other women specifically. If they're not having enough protein at breakfast, the whole day is just like, you're just kind of on edge, need something, but you don't know what it is.
Okay.
I like to use up the jam that we make. So we eat a lot of gluten-free Ezekiel bread or Ezekiel English muffins. Those things are so dangerous. So good.
I haven't had those.
Oh, don't do it. And then Brad and I, every weekend, will have waffle Sunday. I make a lot of sourdough waffles. They're so good.
Are you got your own sourdough starter? Are you making it yourself? Yeah. Perfect.
Yep, I do that. Or I've been making these like awesome tapioca and almond flour waffles. Mm-hmm. Dude, they're so freaking good. But really, it's a vehicle for the jam.
Right. Okay.
Yep. That's important.
Your daily sounds very similar to ours, because we do the same thing with the sourdough and
it's so
the waffles
good.
and all that on occasion. But
it's a good day if you had waffles to get started.
It is. It's a treat. It's a weekend thing.
Same for us. And then lunches, on like a not great day, usually like Brad and I are going to get Indian food or Thai food, just like get it fast, get some veggies, coconut milk, rice, like that could be a pretty standard lunch for us. On like a good day, if I have leftovers, then like everything's great. And honestly, our leftovers a lot of times are probably going to be like chili, something really reminiscent of dark chocolate chili that I've made at home. Mom's spaghetti. I make that meal at least once a week at home. I freaking love it. And we do a lot of curries, and then Brad usually grills burgers for us. So leftovers from the night before, and then dinner is one of those rotations.
Yeah.
So we definitely feel the best when we make the time to go home and cook enough at night to where we have lunches for the next day. I'm finding that for Brad and I right now, we live about 45 minutes from the kitchen. So we've got about an hour and a half of commuting every day. And typically, if we're both at the kitchen, it's from 9 a.m. to 5:30, 6. And then if you want to go to the gym on either side of it, you're basically away from home for 12 hours. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be the thing that's sort of the Achilles heel for us for eating well, is if we don't do enough pre-planning.
Finding time at the end of the day to actually like sit down and get in the kitchen and make an entire meal.
Nobody wants to do that. No. Not at like 9 o'clock at night. It's dark out. So for me, the things that really make it a lot easier are just the Sunday meal prep. Mm-hmm. It's a pain. Like, that's not necessarily how I want to spend my weekends. But if I do that and try to just front load a bunch of cooking for Brad and I know he has a lunch, I have a lunch. We know what we're eating for dinner each night. And then we can just take the dinner leftovers and rotate them in for lunches. And the whole week feels so much better.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just scavenging for like, where's a quick restaurant that I can grab tacos, or where can I go get curry, or maybe I'll just run to the grocery store. Like, you just feel like you're kind of scattered from the get-go.
Rushed. And I get that. No, I think that's probably a lot of people have that same issue. I mean, working all day and trying to find time to make a good, clean, healthy meal at the end of it.
Yeah.
Which is why my crock pots are always working right now. Always having a stew in there, and stews are so dang easy, right?
They're so easy.
And you can just let that thing, like, I'll let that stew just stay on that keep warm level for days.
Yeah.
And I just keep feeding off of it.
It's so easy.
If anybody's ever hungry and we're busy, it's like, just go grab a bowl of stew or grab some meat out of the slow cook crock pot.
Totally. And I think that that's another benefit of the canning stuff in advance. Like, if you have canned meat, you're like one step closer to having a meal on the table.
Oh, yeah. It's easy. I know one of my favorite dishes, and I do have a lot of canned meat. I've got a ton of bear. For some reason, I canned probably way too much bear. The last couple seasons.
No such thing.
There's a ton of it. And I'm trying to whittle on it now, but I used to can potatoes. Like, I would actually make up potatoes. And just because I used to grow so dang many of them, and I would mix the potatoes with like the canned bear meat and just heat that up. It was like quick and easy, and I love that meal. And so now I don't have the potatoes because my soil wasn't ready for it this year, but I do have the canned bear meat, and I'm just adding like these garlic onion. It's like a jelly that I'm making, and it's ridiculously good. So I'll just throw a bunch of that in there. Super quick and easy.
Yeah,
and just
throw an egg on top of it.
That's it.
Call it a gourmet
meal. Your meal. So yeah, canned meat you can do a million things with it, like super fast if you're not ready and prepped for the week. So
totally.
Yep.
Yeah. Getting kind of all your ducks in a row with food. And I feel like that's where it's been really helpful for me to sit down on the weekend, write out what we pretty much eat the same breakfast every day. So like, don't have to worry about that. Except if we have busy mornings, I try to make us egg muffins or something that we can grab and go, because Brad and I both need high protein. Like, oatmeal for me is delicious, and I feel like for myself, it's too carb heavy a lot of times. So for me, it's got to be eggs, sausage, something really high protein. So egg muffins are kind of the lifesaver for us.
Gotcha.
If we need to get going. But then if I sit down and create a grocery list and write out the meals that we're going to have for the full week, I guarantee like the two of us are going to feel so much better, because we're not coming home at 8 o'clock at night and being like, who's cooking? What are we having? Like, that's the worst.
Yeah. It's a real dedication to like take that Sunday and just meal prep all day, because it does end up taking kind of all day long.
Yep.
But I see guys like we try to be good at it. And like in our house right now, Hill is doing this big like competition thing. So she's trying to build strength and build muscle and bulk up. She's got this end goal. So you can't just miss meals. If you haven't thought about it and pre-planned and prepped meals on the weekend, like you say, she comes home at the end of the day and there's just no time to make a meal. You end up putting together these little quick, easy things that aren't going to give you the benefits if you would have prepped. So yeah, it's, I respect guys that I see. Dan Staten is one guy that he has always been so good at meal prep. Him and his wife, you look at those two, they're like as fit as you could possibly get, but they're really, really diligent and dedicated to food. Mm-hmm. And on Sundays, that's what they do as well. It's like that day is when it's not hunt season. That day is dedicated to like making all these meals and, you know, Tupperware it out and into the fridge and ready to go and easy. And that's why they look the way they look. I mean, they work out hard and they always have that good clean meat and good clean food and meal prepped and ready. So
it makes all the
themselves.
difference.
Yep, for sure.
Because I see that a lot with our employees where, you know, they're coming to work each day and when they get off work, they want to be like done. And so a lot of times they're going out for lunch and probably grabbing whatever's quick, whatever's easy, which I totally understand. And it's like, dang, you know, like the quality of food you're going to get at a restaurant is never going to be as good as what you're going to get at home. So I feel like that is such a recipe for success for people who want to be healthy year round, is like focusing on 1 week at a time. Like, what am I going to have for dinner tomorrow? What am I going to have for breakfast the next day? And just looking at it in kind of the short term and how you're executing day to day. Man, you can get so far with your health journey.
Absolutely.
Just focusing on feeding yourself.
Yeah. And eating the right foods consistently, you feel better. You end up being more productive. You want to stay in shape. You end up going to the gym more. You end up going for your run more if you're feeling good. So it's very, very super, super important that, you know, again, we get back to eat what works for you, but make sure it's clean.
Totally. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What are you taking for supplements these days?
I'm not a supplement type of guy.
Not either. But I was hoping you had like just something. So one thing I take consistently for whatever reason is magnesium.
Okay.
At night before bed. Mm-hmm. Like it's now such a routine. And I have found that I have tried to get into the habit of taking supplements.
Yeah.
And I just can't do it. And so I had to like do something like put it in the medicine cabinet next to my toothpaste and kind of like attach it to another habit.
Yeah.
So if I brush my teeth, it's like, oh, I'll take my vitamin D now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And there are a few that I take daily. I don't know. I don't do multivitamins at all. Krill oil is something we take a lot. Vitamin D, because we were all tested and we tested deficient a long time ago. So Hill is very diligent about throwing those droppers in our mouth. So we do the vitamin D. I do CBD every day. That's really helped me out. I'm real consistent with that. And I think it helps in a ton of ways. Turmeric is something that I take, whether that's in the cap form or I put it in coffee. There's like this really good, Laird puts out this coffee creamer. It's got turmeric in it, coconut oil. So that's one of the things I take. Anything inflammation related, because I'm getting old and I do these big trips. Because
you want to heal like Wolverine.
Yes, right. I want to be like, I don't want this downtime. So that's why I take the turmeric. That's why I take the krill oil. That's why I take the CBD. I just always, I want to be able to, you know, endure what we're doing now in the mountains and be able to do this when I'm long term, you know, down the line, 80 years old. I want to be crawling around the mountains, hopefully. And I think inflammation is something super aware of, and it's easy to kind of forget about it. But knowing what your body goes through and, you know, the effects of heavy pack outs and long distance travel in the mountains does to you, you get inflamed. You should try to combat it in one way or another. And diet is how you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I feel like whether you're in the mountains or not, decreasing inflammation should be front of mind.
For sure.
Whether it's stress or it's nutritional or it's not getting sleep or it's alcohol or it's physical training in the gym. I was listening to something earlier today just talking about how, man, the thing that will really keep people from ever seeing results is low-grade inflammation.
Low-grade inflammation. It's the silent killer.
I know. Is that crazy?
And it's inflammation of the gut, inflammation of the joints, inflammation of the body. I mean, it's just destructive. So I think people need to wake up to the fact that your body is getting inflamed and you need to do something to combat that. It's very important if you want to be strong, for a long, long time and not have injuries. Because I know it's like the old saying, use it or lose it. To be able to do these things, you have to be able to maintain. And one injury, like one overuse injury, which is generally because of inflammation, man, that can set you back. And the older I get, I'm 46 now. If I get an injury in the next 10 years, I don't want an injury in the next 10 years because that could set me back and be really hard to come back from. So I want to make sure my joints are strong, not inflamed, I'm not sore all the time, quick recovery, and just, maintain that.
Yep.
I love what I do, so I want to do this forever.
Well, and I think that's the perfect point to maybe wrap up on is loving what you do and knowing that it's going to change. Because I know for me as an athlete, I went through, a period of just like snowboarding and rock climbing and just not even considering myself an athlete to high level competitive training 24 hours a week to CrossFit, which was like so demanding and like really neurologically stressful and just like the whole thing. It was really intense and at the time was really good for me. But now being able to say, dude, I get enough stress from running my business. When I go to the gym or I go on a hike or I do whatever, I do not need more high intensity.
Sure.
Like what I need is to like sit my ass on the bike and like pedal and like look away up from my screen and like get suddenly a new perspective that's not just right here.
Right.
And I feel like being open to what you love doing, allowing that to change over your lifetime so that you don't feel like, well, if I don't love going on hikes anymore, that means I'm no longer going to be fit. It's like, well, what's the new activity that you do have the time, you do have the energy and the excitement for that is going to keep you active? And so for me, I don't know if that's helpful for anybody else, but I feel like allowing myself to tweak and change what my physical activity looks like, it allows me to be more consistent over time rather than being like, if I don't do this, then it's not enough or I'm a failure or whatever it is.
Sure.
And that's been really, really helpful for honestly, like kind of getting back to the gym of being like, I'm going to do something totally different than I've ever done before and have a brand new experience of it rather than just always trying to go back to where you were in the past. So
yeah, get it.
I think that's valuable for people to just not like put the expectation of them on themselves of like, if I don't hike with 100-pound pack, then I'm not doing enough and I'm not being healthy.
Sure. I think, as cliche as it sounds about finding your passion in life, I know what my passion is. And so that drives me. And that's what my whole world is based around right now. I know my passion is backcountry. It's not just the hunting, but being up there and the ability to get in there. I have to take all these steps. So it forces you to think long term, take care of your body, take care of your health. Because I love it so much, I want to be able to do it forever. And that's how I want to live my life. I want to live it throughout the season so that I can spend as much time back there doing what I love to do as much as possible. What's going to allow that? Clean living, exercise, eating right, these 2 supplements that we take, whatever is going to, I have no idea how I would react to not being able to do that. Gosh, it'd be devastating because of like not taking care of my body and just being inflamed and just not feeling ready to go do it and tackle it. Be a different world. So having that one passion for me is basically the rest of the year is spent trying to make sure I'm ready for that. And it just becomes a lifestyle. Then you just want to do it all the time.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Well, I admire it, and I think I've told you before, but I just really look up to you and Hillary, and just I look forward to the day that I get to kind of deepen my understanding of things like gardening and preserving. And obviously I aspire to have a successful hunt or two in my life. But I also think for me, like, it's been valuable for me to get to experience hunting and to go do that and be like, this is awesome. And this maybe isn't going to be like my life's passion, and that's okay.
Yep.
And I think that that's been valuable too, to like go and experience these different activities and to pick and choose, like, what are the things that really excite me now, knowing it's going to change later. Yep. And as you already said, following your passions and just allowing them to change and tweak over time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks to you and Hill for being really great role models for young bucks like Brad and I.
I give all the credit to Hill because she changed my world and
she's
got
the
me
best.
thinking about it. So for sure.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have, are you taking some time off for the holidays?
Yeah. So I got some weeks here before me and Brian get back at it on the mountain.
Listen to you. I was going to say
5 weeks, I think, before, now about a month before we go get a chase Coues deer in Arizona again. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's a nice needed break from the mountains. As much as I love it, you got to recover and recoup and have some downtime and holiday season, spend time with the family. So,
but you're still working towards year-round hunting.
Who doesn't want that? Is the end goal. Somehow we're finding new and different and creative hunts to go on throughout the year. So
I think it's
I'm
awesome.
not complaining by any stretch.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.